Okay.
So how did you end up in Siem Reap?
So Siem Reap. So by way of Phnom Penh, I had to find a job in Cambodia because I had left Vietnam in really quick circumstances. Actually, you kind of have to go back a little ways. So my plan was to go to Vinh Long, Vietnam and teach English for a year. The idea of teaching an underserved community really appealed to me. And I got hooked up with the school from where I was stateside in Oregon and basically put everything I owned into storage. And I've got somebody at home taking care of all of that. And then I packed up my life into 2 suitcases and came to Vietnam. Unfortunately, it was a disreputable school and my work permit wasn't approved, but it had more to do with the school discriminating against me than it had to do with, the government. So I got a 48-hour deportation order and I made a run for the border to Phnom Penh, where there's an embassy. I didn't know that the embassy doesn't care. So I knocked around for 3 weeks in Phnom Penh, being as careful as I could with my money, trying to find work teaching. I took 13 resumes to 13 different schools and hand delivered them, all for naught. But one of the first schools that I contacted has actually recently been in touch with me, and they have a school in Phnom Penh and in Siem Reap. But to wrap it up, I decided a change of locale was needed. So one of my bucket list items in life is to see Angkor Wat because I'm a practicing Buddhist, and so Siem Reap was kind of a no-brainer. I saw in one of the expat groups an ad from Route 66. I answered it. I came, I was like, hey, gonna be there tomorrow. I'll need a room. So I booked a room for the first 2 days, and then after that, as you know, I've already been working the front desk. Now I'm the cleaning coordinator. I'm doing bar promotion, and I have an audition coming up in the next couple of days to see about assistant managing the bar next door. So that's kind of how I ended up here.
So what made you make the decision to leave America in the first place?
That one's more interesting. So I'm gonna go back about 10 or 12 years. Got out of a really bad relationship. Not gonna lie, kind of like Pink and her husband. I owned my own tattoo shop in Portland, Oregon. The recession hit. Things that people can't live with or don't need in their lives in a recession: swimming pools, pianos, tattoos. Those are luxury items. So my business closed down. There was a lot of mess use involved. I'm not even gonna lie about that. We were both doing it, and he left me for a mess dealer. I had about 60 grand in sweat equity into the property that we had together, and I made him sign a quitclaim to let me out of the whole thing scot-free, and I left. I was like, okay, the mortgage, everything, the whole headache is yours now. I'm just gonna walk away. Loaded up an 18-foot U-Haul with everything I had, which left the house pretty bare. And I ended up putting my things in my mom's barn, and I spent a winter living in the tack room, the horse tack room, but it was heated, and I had a little cat for company that I rescued, who ended up being a really great mouser. He's a stone cold killer, but that was the catalyst for me to, at 38 years old, say, I think I'm going to go back to company that you have as a minimum, an associate's degree, to hold the next job, and you don't have that, Monty. I'm sorry. Well, that soured me on working for that company. So over the course of the next few months, when they placed greater demands on me for my existing salary, I was like, get bent. I'm not working 16-hour days. I already give you 12 to 14, and that's enough. They let me go. They let 12 other people go, though. They were paying that wage because they could get people who were younger to accept a lower salary and do the same job because they were hungry. So there ended up being a class action suit about that I chose not to be a part a double minor for my Bachelor of Arts in Communication Studies and Philosophy, a Master of Arts in Education, Leadership and Policy, with a graduate teaching cert for teaching diverse adult learners. It's one of the most rewarding things I've ever done. While I was at university, I was inducted into the National Residence Hall Honorary, which is the top 1% of student leaders nationwide. I sat on their board. While I was there, we're responsible with cooking up really good student programming events. So the stuff that students do during finals week, like midnight breakfast casino night, you know. We do things to take people's mind off of the pressure. So I came up with, we brought the chopped competition to Portland State, and I was the head judge for 2 years. So I got to be really cruel to people whose cooking skills sucked. And I got to be really, really, constructive and gratified by people who showed cooking skills that were amazing. Because the whole goal was to involve people who lived on campus. So you had to show us what you could do in a kitchen that's on campus that people cook in every day. So it was a lot of fun. I worked for 2 different student publications. I did journalism while I was doing that. I found a voice through journalism and being an author. And I also blossomed as a photographer then. So I worked for a classy magazine called The Spectator. And then I also worked for the alternative newspaper, The Rear Guard. After that, actually, while I was still in school, doing my grad work, I worked for Portland's LGBTQ publication, Just Out, and not Just Out. Just Out became. I've forgotten the name. Of the monthly publication, but that's really bad. I've forgotten the name, but it's really great. And if you Google my name, you'll actually see stories that I wrote for that publication. So there's that. But that gave me the experience to do what I'm doing now, which is I'm still the board member at large for my tribe's independent press because I'm actually Native American. But see, I go down all these rabbit trails, and if you ever meet me, you'll actually see it in action because I have really severe ADHD. So it was a big deal for me to get a master's and a bachelor's degree. That was a big deal. I cried when I got my master's because it was really hard for me. It's not easy when you have a learning disability. So, but I had really great support and squishes and hugs. I always call it squishes to the people who supported me and helped me, because I did all of those amazing things and then couldn't find a job in my chosen field. I briefly took a job as a tutor for my tribe's youth education department, but these were the youth that had trouble in school. Yeah. So they were a handful, and that didn't work out for me. Then I did a job where I worked in a group home for a non-profit, but again, I was working with high-risk behavior youth, and where they like physically assault you every day. They spit on you, they kick you, they hit you, and you're not supposed to do anything back. If they start hurting themselves, though, you have to put them into a compliance hold. And one day I had a kind of a come to Jesus moment with one of the kids, where I told him, I said, "Do you understand that this outfit is not interested whatsoever in your success? The things that I asked you, what do you want from life? I want to have a girlfriend. I want to get a job. I want to have an apartment. They are not invested at all." I saw the seedy underbelly of this industry, and it was this. The more the kid acts out, the more money they get from the federal government to take care of him. I said, so the reality of the situation is, they stand to gain from you nutting up. The more you nut up, the more money they get. They're not invested in your success at all. So all the things that I have been trying to do for you, they have been undermining me. And I need you to know this. You need to know, because you just turned 18. They are not interested in your success. Find a way out. Because, buddy, the things you do to me, you're not helping yourself. You're really not helping yourself at all. And they are not invested in your success either. So you're not going to get anywhere. Well, they fired me for it. They fired me for that. And it's to be expected, right? They fired me for it.
So what is your goal with now you're in Cambodia and teaching Khmer kids?
Yeah, I mean, I found myself in the US working
Do a short break.
I just had to. I had a moment where I said, this is not how my life was supposed to look. And I don't work that hard or invest that much of myself in something to have it not turn out. And I'm not a quitter. And I said, I need to do something drastic with my life. So I had a friend who's Japanese, past. And so I had those moments with my mom and my sister where I said, you know, I can't do this if I don't know that you're going to be okay. And for once, you know, my sister was like, when I wanted to move to Arizona, she's like, oh, I don't want you to be even farther away. I only get to see you like 2 weeks in the summer when I come to Oregon. And when I had floated the idea of going to Samoa with the Peace Corps, because this wasn't an idea that I hadn't thought about before. I had actually went through all the motions and talked with the recruiter and sat down and was about to get the vaccinations and start learning Tagalog so that I could go and teach in Samoa a couple of years ago. And my mom was kind of, ooh, you know, that she got online and was looking at things, and she's like, well, you know, I mean, you're really, really Mr. Native, and they are really, really Christian there. It says online, like 94% of the islands are Christian. And I know that, you know, with your activism and your social justice, that's gonna mess things up. Boy, some people really need brake jobs here. Believe me, that's the brakes on a tuk-tuk. So, she's like, you know, I know that you really push back against colonialism and Christianity is a big part of that. And do you think that you could actually keep your mouth shut and not get chased off the islands by torch-wielding villagers type thing, you know, right? And I was like, yeah, I don't know. I have to be true to myself. So that part kind of fizzled out. But this time, you know, my sister could see that I was unhappy. My mom could see that I was happy. My sister was the first to come up and say, yeah, bro, if you have a chance to go and teach in Asia, you need to do it. You'd be stupid not to. When are you ever going to have a chance like this? Again, to just start your life over from scratch, because I'd been evicted from my apartment for non-payment. Oh, by the way, I lost the job in the kettle chip factory when I started mouthing off. When I started mouthing off because I didn't like the abuse anymore, I lost my job. So, because I got sick, I broke my hand. Now I have a disfigured hand, and it doesn't work right. I can't make a fist right. They paid me a small sum of money, but they let me go because I used up my vacation, and oh, we got an opening. We have a chance now. We can get rid of this guy. So they got rid of me. So really, life was in the toilet. And I've heard a lot of other stories of redemption, so it's kind of interesting because it feels like there's like a few different flavors or you know, reasons that people came here. When I talk to other expats, some people just wanted to retire here, and some people came just to teach. But I came for more reasons than that. I came because I hated my life there. It was in the shitter. You know, I was about to be homeless. Actually, I was homeless for almost a month. I was living out of my car. I was living out of my car, moving my things into storage, and it all just kind of came together that, you know, I had a friend that was willing to help me. So everything happened really quickly after that. I went through 3 weeks of vaccinations. That I'm fortunate that I am indigenous, that I'm Native American, because my tribe paid for all of it to get me over here to protect me. But really, there have been several go moments, like it's go time. You gotta make a decision. And this has happened over the last 2 months, quite a bit, you know? So, homeless, living in my car, what do? I pack up and go to Asia. I check with my sis first. Is it gonna be okay? Yeah, you'd be a fool not to go. But the big moment was when I asked my mom, I said, are you gonna be okay? taking care of your family. And so, you know, being from a split family, because my parents split up when I was 8, I've always felt that need to take care of my gram and my aunt and my mom, because they're all single and or you know, my mom's married now. Larry, you're cool. But it was for decades.
So because your brother was the one who kind of went away from home, you felt like you had to be the one.
Yeah, he left straight out of high school. Straight out of high school, he went into the army, and he went to Kosovo on a peacekeeping mission and various things. But he was stationed in I think it's Manhattan, Kansas, or Lawrence, Kansas has the base right outside of it. So yeah, I mean, he's always had a life away, and but I've always been near home. I mean, I left for a while. I moved to Alaska for a year and a half in my 20s, and you know, I mean, I lived in Portland, but I was never more than an hour away from the reservation, where my family's all from. And it's really interesting because in the couple decades that I've been there, you know, family have all come back now. People have bought places and they've all come back home to the reservation. So it's been cool because I was here. So I got to spend time with those family and stuff. But yeah, my mom was like, no, you need to go. You need to go and find your life.
Well, you know, sometimes there's a massive risk involved in doing something drastic like moving to another country or going traveling. But there's an even bigger risk involved in staying and doing nothing.
Yeah, and I can say for certain, I was hanging out with people who, well, this is not coming from me, this is from my mom. My mom called them lowlifes. She's like, you're hanging out with lowlifes. I mean, even a couple days before I got on the plane, somebody stole a camera from me that I just bought. And so, you know, my mom's like, you're hanging out with lowlifes. And, you know, if I'm honest, I was lapsed in here and there, you know, drinking, drugging, gambling, you know, because I didn't care. I had reached a point where I really didn't care anymore. And I didn't want to see myself go down that road. I mean, I have gone under and rebuilt my life several times already in my life. Like, started with nothing and come all the way back, you know, the house, the trappings, the car, and then lose it all again. And this time I was like, I want this time to be different. I'm more self-aware than this. I'm worth more than this. As a person, I know my self-worth. So why am I just pissing my life away when I could be doing something meaningful? And that was the thing for me. Whatever I do in Asia, I want it to be meaningful. Or I want it to be something that fills me up and sustains me.
So what made you become a practicing Buddhist?
Ooh, that's an awesome question. Oh gosh. So, whoa. This goes back about 12 years. About 12 years ago, I got interested in Buddhism because I've always had an interest in theology. And so I've, over the course of my life, taken time to examine and learn about each different world religion. The thing about Buddhism was that it's not a, I want to say, formalized religion in the sense that I don't think that there's a single thing except for the 5 precepts. There's not a single thing that's like, these are the rules, and you can't pray to Buddha.
It's not as dogmatized as all the other religions.
Right, right. It's not the mortar and stone philosophy. early on, I had this realization, hey, you can light a stick of incense and pray anywhere. And so the whole brick and mortar thing, you have to be in churches of stone, wooden stone and stuff, it turned me off. But this is the most important thing. As an indigenous native person who is native to the continent that I'm from, and I realize that I'm very Caucasian appearing, but I'm not. I have Spanish blood. I was raised acculturated. I was raised knowing that I was Indian. 8, 9 years old, I was dancing at powwows in regalia, and so my whole life I've known this, and I've come from a matriarchal culture where the oldest surviving woman has the final say. So it's also a culture that has been heavily damaged through a Holocaust that is known as people coming to America, but that was a Holocaust for indigenous people. Rough estimates are something like 16 million people murdered, so that America could be created. But and Christianity had a huge role in that. And it's not that I hate Christians, it's just that I hate what they've become. You look at the news and all of the things that people build that motherfucking wall. Keep out the immigrants. Wait, you were immigrants. You were immigrants who came here and forced your religion on people who were peaceful, who lived here. And everything in your faith, whether it's the Old Testament or the New, says you're supposed to treat strangers and foreigners as well as you would treat the least of you. That you don't take everything from your crops or all of the gleanings of your crops. You don't reap everything that you've sown. You're to leave the gleanings for the poorest of you to go and have something to eat, right? That's not what these people do, though. They call themselves Christians while they discriminate and push people away and want to build walls to keep people out. And yet it's a tenet of their faith to build a longer table, not a taller fence. So I can't take the hypocrisy. I can't stand it. I can't take it anymore. The hypocrisy is too much. And it was one of the things that drove me to come to Asia, was this idea that I know that most people are Buddhist there, okay, except for in certain places where it's Islam, and I have nothing against Islam. I witnessed firsthand and I told my parents this while I was at university. I said, I'm hearing you say things about Muslim people, and I have to stop you. It hurts my head because I have witnessed women in hijabs go into the pita pit, buy a complete meal of a full pita, chips, a drink, everything, tie the bag, and hand it to the man who was laying on the pavement outside. Full $7 they'd spent, and they just quietly, without needing any praise from anybody, without needing to post to Facebook about it for attention, they just quietly went in, ordered food for someone, brought it out, and handed it to them. Because it's a tenet of their faith that they take care of their brother, that they are their brother's keeper, that they do take care of the least of themselves. They take care of somebody who is a stranger to their faith. Now, to me, that's huge. And I told my parents, I'm like, I don't want to hear this stuff about Muslims. I don't want to hear the fear-mongering about Islam, because it's no different than Christianity. It is a religion that preaches about love and accepting and honoring and tradition. It's all those things and more. So, for me, what an eye-opener to come to Vietnam and now Cambodia because it's a complete flip of the script. Where I could see in downtown, any area downtown of any city in the US, churches on every other corner that are of some kind of Judeo-Christian faith, it's the exact opposite here. There are pagodas and temples everywhere. I've yet to see a Christian church here. I've seen 2 Catholic churches. And I mean, you know, yeah, let's keep it real. It was the Jesuits that first came to the US. So Catholics are usually on top of it. But yeah, it's Buddhism here. And the thing about when I found Buddhism the first time, it was, you know, yeah, I was not the nicest person. You know, I was doing things I shouldn't be doing. And when I started practicing Buddhism, it was strange because I felt like it did not take away from my Native American spirituality at all. It simply made me a better person. Buddhism made me a better native. It made me a better Native American. I've heard a Catholic priest say Buddhism made me a better Catholic priest. Blew my mind.
That's beautiful.
Yeah, it blew my mind that this Catholic priest would say this, and I'm like, wow, that was not my experience in catechism. I turned my back on the Catholic Church at 16 because I knew who I was, and I knew that the Catholic Church was really against who I was, and I couldn't understand that. How can you say that I'm made in God's image and everything, and then at the same time tell me that I'm going to burn in hell because of who I love? And it didn't gel, so I was like, yeah, that's not going to work for me. So I was faithless for a long time. But then I re-engaged with my native spirituality, but I had already engaged with Buddhism at that point. I had already engaged with Buddhism. So, but yeah, later in life though, it just became an easy thing for me. I would go to service, I would have lunch with the monks and the nuns on Sundays, eat a vegetarian lunch that was always beautiful, and it makes me feel good to bring them things that they need to eat, to sustain them. So it's like, you know, this is something that sustains me, and I can give something that sustains them. Yeah. And it just feels good. It feels good and it feels right. So I really, really love being here in Asia. It's awesome. Definitely for that. Some highlights of Cambodia though, I gotta touch on, okay? Always ask the